Hi, my name is Kirti Reddy and I work for SAP. Today I will show you how to load data from SAP Data Services into SAP BW. There are multiple steps involved in loading the data into BW. First, we need to prepare the BW InfoSource for data loading. Next, we build a BW load job within Data Services. Then we configure a Data Services load job. There are two different ways to execute this job once configured. We could either run the job from BW or we could run the job from Data Services. And by running the job, we therefore execute the data services job. A prerequisite to this exercise is to set up a data services source system connection in BW and to create an RFC server configuration in data services. In this instance, I've already checked the connection, so let's go ahead and get started with the first step, preparing the BW InfoSource for data loading. First, let's open up our BW session by going into Start, Programs, SAP Front End, and then your SAP Logon Launchpad. After clicking on your BW session, then enter your BW login credentials. Once you enter the BW application, enter the transaction RSA1. Today we will be using the object zeroCustomer in order to prepare our InfoSource. First, we have to create the link between the source system and the InfoSource. To do this, we use transfer rules. So let's navigate to our customer. Then today we're going to be loading the customer text. So from the customer text object, let's right-click, Additional Functions, and then navigate to Create Transfer Rules. We're going to give our transfer structure a source system, and this source system is what we were referring to as a prerequisite for data services. So in our instance, it's ds_source4. Hit continue. And then it asks you if you want to make the data source assignment from zeroCustomer text to the InfoSource zeroCustomer. We're going to say yes to save. By default, it is mapped one-to-one into the InfoSource, and typically this is what you want to keep. So let's go ahead and save and activate. Save. And then let's activate. And you can see the status go from modified to active once it's activated. There you go. Now that we have created the transfer structure for the source system data source 4, now we need to go ahead and build the BW load job in Data Services Designer. So let's go ahead and minimize the screen. Open up our designer by going into Start, Programs, SAP Business Objects, and then Data Services Designer. Enter our login credentials. And then choose our repository. Once Data Services Designer is open, we're going to want to navigate to our Data Store tab within the Local Object Library, and then to our BW Target Data Store. When you open the BW Target Data Store, you can browse the available info sources in their master data and transfer structures, transactional data transfer structures. In our instance, this is zeroCustomer, so it's master data. Let's navigate to our zeroCustomer. Here's our customer transfer structure. Let's expand. And then navigate to our data source, ds_source4. Let's expand that data source. And then let's go to our customer text info source, right click, and then import. Now if we look under the BW target master transfer structures, we see our customer text info source. Next we want to build a job and data flow to load the transfer structure. So let's go ahead and start with creating a project. Project, new, and then project. Let's give our project a name. Customer_demo. And then let's create a batch job within our project by right-clicking on the project, and then new batch job. Let's give our job a name. Customer demo. Double click on the job to open up our workspace. And then within the workspace, we're going to use the source table as a customer source table from the SQL database. Data_ds is a data store for the SQL database. And amongst that is a customer table. This is going to be our source data. Oh, sorry. Before we do that, we want to bring a data flow into our job. And the data flow is what holds the source table, the target table, and the transfer rules, which in data services is called a transfer query. So let's give our data flow a name. Customer demo. And now we are ready to bring in the source table. So let's drag and drop the customer table, choose source, and then our target is going to be the zero customer text transfer structure from the BW target data store. Let's drag and drop that in as a target, and then we'll bring over the transfer query in order to do our mapping rules. So let's connect our source system, or our source table, to our target table. And then within the query transform, let's do our mapping rules. So for the customer, we're going to use the customer ID. Let's map it from the left to the right. And then for the text, we're going to use the company name. So let's go ahead and back out. Validate our query, or validate our job. There's just a few warnings for conversion between the formats of the source and target objects. And let's go ahead and save our job. Now, as I stated at the beginning, you have two options to execute this job. The first option is simply by running the data services job through data services. Second option is to create an info package and click it on execute on within BW. Let's go ahead and start with the first option. Since we already created the job, all we have to do is we could execute it within the designer or from the management console. Today I'm just going to execute the job from designer itself. Let's go to the job within the project area, right click, and then hit execute. It asks you if you want any traces or monitoring. Today we're going to leave all the defaults. And let's select OK. Now within the job log, it'll show you each section of what's running. So now the data flow has been started. And then it's going to show us when the job is completed. In the monitor section, you could see how many records have been loaded. And then if there's any errors, this X will pop up. And then if you see here, the job is completed successfully, and the load is 847 records. So this is how we would run the job from Data Services. Next, I'll show you how to run the job from BW. So let's go ahead and minimize Data Services, Designer. Let's go back into our BW. And then let's navigate to our transfer rules. And if you see, this is the one from Data Services Source System. Let's click on our PSA, right click, and we're going to want to create an info package to load our job from BW. So we're going to right click on our PSA and then scroll down to create info package. We're going to give our info package a description. And then we're going to choose text and then save. Now in our info package, since Data Services is a third-party selection and we have our source system connected here, we're going to want to give the third-party selection parameters. Initially, the default is going to be all grayed out. We're going to want to hit the refresh button, and then this makes the connections Data Services and outputs what Data Services needs as input parameters. So if you see here, the mandatory fields that are required are repository and job name. So let's go ahead and give our Data Services repository name, and then enter our job name. Let's check the connection. So check carried out OK. And now we're ready to schedule or execute our job. Since we want to start this data load immediately, let's go ahead and execute start. And then the data was requested, and now we could go into the monitor screen and view our load. So this is the status. And then if we go into the details tab, go ahead and say OK. We'll see the overall status in case any messages or warnings come up. So if you see here, 847 records arrived in BW, and the job is successful. Now we could see our job has been successfully loaded into the PSA. And if you go into the PSA, right click, we could see our two requests that we just loaded. The first one from DI generated, so Data Services generated info package, and the second is the one that we loaded within SAP BW. So this concludes the tutorial on how to load data from SAP Data Services into SAP BW. Thank you for your time.